everybody. Thank you for coming to our Outlaws of Thunder Junction set review. Just going to give you a quick little preamble before we get into the video with Ryan and Max. You'll notice that during the video, they do have a little bit of a weird, wonky camera thing going on. I had the cameras accidentally mirrored, so you're going to see them looking to the left or the right, and they'll be looking the wrong direction. I do apologize for that. So hopefully it doesn't distract you too much, but without any further ado, please enjoy the video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys all later on. Thank you.
All right, welcome everybody. My name is Ryan. I am here today with Max for Mecha Games, located here in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. We are here today to do our first set review for the upcoming release of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. It's releasing next Friday, from when we're recording this at least, so April the 12th. All of these cards will go on sale on their website at mechagames.ca on that date. So if you are excited, like Max and myself are, for this set coming out, please make sure you support your local game stores, order some cards online, all that fun stuff.
Especially come out for the pre-release. We'll be hosting with it as well. Love to see it come out.
Yeah, pre-release is always exciting as well. Same date, so again, if you are local or you're looking for a pre-release, come on down, Mecha Games. Always a good time. Pre-releases are great fun, so always enjoy them. But today, Max and I are here. We're going to be going over. We're going to start just kind of talking about kind of the flavor of the set here, what we're kind of looking at as we get into it, and then we're going to be talking about the new mechanics from this set. So for those that either do or don't follow along a lot with the actual game itself, we'll talk about some of the changes here. And then we're going to go over a few of the cards that we're excited for, and just for different formats, kind of our thoughts on them, where we think they kind of fit into different puzzles, and kind of go from there. So to start things off here, Max, why don't you give us a little bit of a taste of what exactly this set is all about? So
there is 4 very interesting new mechanics. I think we should start off with probably the most recognizable. That is Saddle. So Saddle is on creatures. Tap any number of other creatures you control with total power X. X usually is 2, 3, but it will be on the card or more. This map becomes Saddle until end of turn. Saddle is only at sorcery speed.
Yep.
Saddle in this set is a lot like Crew.
Yep.
But it does not kind of activate the creature. It gives it more abilities.
Yeah, Saddle, as you mentioned, reminiscent of Crew, of course. We have what are now referred to as mounts, as opposed to vehicles. Again, the big difference here, at least again for myself, kind of speaking from a play perspective, it is the sorcery speed that you have to obey now with the mount. Vehicles obviously being able to also block more effectively, but the other big difference there again is all the mounts are already creatures. They don't need someone mounting them in order to actually be active as a creature like the vehicles do. The vehicles, some maybe had some abilities that would turn them into creatures, but otherwise it was just the activated ability of crewing that would turn it in. So if you're familiar with vehicles, mount shouldn't be anything too new, outside of course that sorcery speed ability.
Mm-hmm. Our next one, Plot. So you may pay the mana cost of the plot. Usually this is around the same mana cost of the actual card.
Yeah.
You exile this card from your hand. Then you cast it as a sorcery on a later turn without paying its mana cost.
Yeah.
Of course, you only plot as a sorcery as well.
Yeah, plot's an interesting one to me. I think it's probably one of the ones that is going to have. I think more of the plot cards will have a bigger impact out of the new mechanic cards on constructed formats than things like Saddle, for example. There's definitely a couple plot cards that we have in our different cards that we're going to review here in a little bit, and yeah, just the ability to kind of put it on layaway for later, pay the cost now when I've got this mana just kind of kicking around doing nothing. Mana efficiency is always the name of the game, and just being able to cast it later. And again, a couple of cards we're going to look at that have plot, definitely a big advantage being able to play them at a later turn as opposed to having to do it all in one turn. So I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff with plot is you take it out of your hands. You can't really get it ripped out by, say, a Thoughtseize duress, so on and so forth. You play it for free, so you can hold up a lot of interaction as you cast it. So for those decks that kind of want to play more maybe mid-range or aggro that just wants to get cards down with stuff to back it up, this is a very interesting mechanic for that kind of play style.
Yeah. Up next, we're looking at committing crimes, which I think when it was first spoiled, people were, well, they weren't sure what they did, first of all. Just kind of said whenever you commit a crime. So committing a crime, for the actual rules text of this, you commit a crime, or you're kind of labeled as having committed a crime in a turn if you target an opponent, one of their permanents that they control, or one of the cards in their graveyard. So all of these different things.
And spells. This
Yes, true.
This targets anything.
True, yes. Basically, if you target anything of your opponents in pretty much any way, you're going to be committing a crime at that point there. So not hard to commit crimes now in Magic. And I'm sure there's going to be lots of jokes that come out of the idea of committing a crime. But these cards that feature this, if you've committed a crime this turn, or when you commit a crime type mechanic or type wording, generally getting some sort of benefit either when you do it or if you've done it this turn. What are your thoughts on committing crime, Max?
I think it's a very easy thing to interact with.
Yep.
A lot of the mechanics around it are either once per turn,
Yep.
or have an upfront cost to pay into it, with the other mechanics trying to play off of that. But I do very much enjoy it. Committing crime is very easy in Magic.
Yeah.
And can lead to some very interesting cards getting into some cool decks that I hope to see pop up.
Yeah, big note you called out there too. Just when I was going over kind of all the cards earlier, when we had the full spoiler and stuff like that. Again, the very importantly worded that it does say that it only triggers once per turn. I think if that wasn't a limitation to some of these cards, there are definitely cards going back in Magic's past that can very, very easily kind of break those cards more than you'd like to see them broken, without that restriction being applied to it in the first place. A lot of it being things that like grow, or they create tokens or something like that. You want to be careful, uncapping an ability like that. So I think we have one more. What else we got there, Max?
Our last new mechanic is Spree. So this is essentially Kicker, as the choke entails.
Yeah.
You have a initial casting cost, and then you can choose one or more additional costs. If you cast a spell with Spree without paying its mana cost, you must still choose one or more modes and pay those additional costs.
Yep.
This does matter a lot for Explore, Cascade, and other ways to cheat it in.
Yeah, like you said, very similar to Kicker, kind of like our similarity between Saddle and Crew. This one, you get it's a modal spell though at this point. Generally, in the past, Kickers have just either, added, replication of an effect, or they've added, maybe a little more text to it. This definitely going with that kind of latter approach, where it's adding more abilities, but you really get to choose what you want to add to it. And very importantly, again, with how it's all worded, because it is an additional cost, when you get to cast that spell for free, you don't get to just cheat and choose all the modes for yourself, because that would be, again, pretty easy to break, I think, with some cards out there in Magic's past for sure. So yeah, those are the new mechanics that we have coming out in Outlaws Thunder Junction. In terms of kind of the overall flavor of the set, if you're not familiar with it, it's a Western themed set. We're looking at a lot of, as they now made a new kind of classification here of Outlaws, which I don't really believe any of the cards that we're looking at today are really outlaw focused.
So I think in the set there's probably about 10 top Outlaw Matters cards.
Yeah.
A lot of things that Wizards has done recently is try to make sure they don't give a tribe too much to work with.
Yeah.
We saw that with I think the last tribe we had was Detectives. We got 2-mana Lord. But
yeah, the last new one in the previous set, Murders of Karlov Manor, yeah, you had Detective as that new creature type that came out. But
They've been showing a lot of restraint, so sadly, this does affect Outlaws.
Yeah, Outlaws a kind of a classification more. It's not an actual type in and of itself. It is more a grouping of different creature types that it falls into. So assassins, mercenaries, rogues. There's two more, I believe.
There's mercenaries, mercenaries, ninjas, rogues, pirates, warlocks.
Yeah, that's what I forgot. Ninjas, pirates, and lost ones. There we go.
One we're missing, but it's a strange assassins.
Assassins, yeah, that's what I
Yeah. I think this is kind of there's no backwards compatibility, so the older mechanics don't really interact that nicely with Outlaw.
No, there's no this is the first set we've seen the appearance of this classification of Outlaw. So yeah, there are creatures in Magic's history that are now going to be considered outlaws, but you're not going to be able to go back and find, this broken outlaw card that existed before, but we didn't know what outlaw was. This is what's been introduced.
Funnily enough, though, there is a card that says you can search your library for an outlaw. So I think that is changed now to actually work with this. I don't know what the card is called.
Like in the new set, you mean?
No, like in the old, it's like they did like Rebels or something, like way back when, like White Border.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But
okay, well let's get into some of these cards that we want to talk about. We'll kind of add now as well. We're not going to be talking about a lot of the commander cards. At the time of this recording, I don't believe they've all been spoiled just yet for the commander cards.
They have been fully spoiled. There is, I think, two or three we do have lined up.
Yeah, there's a couple that we will touch on a little bit here, but most of these are going to be the cards that are going into the standard pool, the constructed pool. And to also just to clarify as well, there are a lot of different set symbols you're going to see in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. They've had a lot of different kind of tertiary sets that they kind of add in their bonus sets, if you want to call them that. You're going to have the regular set itself. You're going to have the what was going to be the Aftermath-esque set, which
from the vault.
I'm not sure it's from the vault. I think it's something to do with the vault there. Yeah. But the logo will be different as well.
There's the standard. We have the commander.
Yeah.
We have the special guest.
Yeah. We
We have breaking news. I think we have from the vault.
Yeah.
I will say usually we have about 4.
Yeah.
Wilds of Eldraine had 4. The standard, commander, chanting tales, and then the special guest.
Yeah.
So this will be probably hopefully the peak of sets we get, because I think this is probably the last.
Yeah, there's
epilogue set. I think we are getting one in Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
But that is far away.
Yeah, that comes out a little ways from now. But yeah, so these cards there's gonna be we have for sure one commander card we're gonna touch on that Justice insisted upon. So we'll definitely get that in there. Yeah, absolutely.
But Ryan, how do you feel about the set in total after seeing all this, getting the little tidbits of the story?
So it's funny, we had talked about this, myself and some other players before, and, as the spoilers were rolling out, there was a lot of discussion from people online, from, people at the store here, just about the kind of general power level that was coming out with some of these cards. And when you look at the designer of the set, that kind of shed some light on why that was the way it was. The designer of this set, the lead designer was the person responsible as well for sets like Ikoria, War of the Spark, a lot of sets from recent history that had, generally speaking, pretty high power levels, all things considered. So I'm not overly surprised. I'm excited for a lot of the cards in the set, for a variety of different formats, whether it be standard back through modern. We don't, I will say, our store here, not a big focus on, things beyond modern, like legacy and vintage and stuff like that. So I will say, if you're looking for insight on what's going to shake up the formats there, not going to find a lot out here, unfortunately, but
good luck.
Yeah. But standard Pioneer, which we have a Pioneer RCQ season coming up here. We do have some RCQs here at Mecha Games. So if you're looking to itch that, competitive competitive side, come on down for those. You can find all those on the website as well at kamekagames.ca. But I think overall, I'm pretty excited for the set. I think there's going to be some changes that we see. I don't think there's anything like groundbreakingly format warping, defining type things. I think it's going to be kind of similar to how I felt about Lost Caverns of Ixalan, where there was a lot of good cards that got brought into a lot of formats, just based on the rate of them at that point there. So, but yeah. Let's get into some of these cards now then. We'll take a look here. So we're going to start off here with you yourself are an avid player of Scales and Urza's Saga type decks. So we're going to start off here. We have Lava Spur Boots. We have it on screen here. So 1 mana artifact. It is an equipment in a vein similar to some previous renditions, if you want to call it, of this kind of effect, where
boots.
Yeah, the boot cycle, the different footwear cycle, where for a minor equip cost here just of 1, you get to give a creature +1/+0 haste and ward 1. So not as strong as the originals like Lightning Greaves or even Swiftfoot Boots. Ward kind of that safer, more manageable version of that mechanic type, but still adds a nice level of protection to a creature, especially if your opponent's going to be very mana efficient. That extra 1 mana can throw things off, and the haste is always nice. So what are your thoughts on where you think this might appear?
I feel that this card has a lot of opportunity to be a very impactful card. This is the easiest way to kind of view it. Is you have your Urza's Saga, you have Construct on turn 3, turn 4 you make your second one, you play a new land, you equip the boots to the new construct,
sure,
and you are just swinging in for a payday.
Sure.
This card, it's ward 1, which can matter a lot. Decks do play, evoke elementals.
Yep.
The only one that does kind of not really care is Solitude, but they are solituding the one that came in this turn, so you still have 1.
Yeah, you got the attacker.
Swing in.
Yeah.
So I do think this card can give you some very much needed stickiness on the board.
For sure. Yeah, and again, to kind of go back to the comparison to the previous, boot type cycle, different one here. It does only cost 1, which again, this is a bit different than the rest of them. The rest of them having typically cost 2 to actually put into play. Similarly low equip costs, but yeah, like you said, that potential to just have a construct you make on 3, construct on 4, give it haste right away, and even with just the 2 constructs plus the boots, you're attacking for 7 power right there. Which, I mean, sure, arguable, you could be doing maybe different, but I think this could be a good addition. You see in maybe even some like combo oriented type decks potentially. The haste, if you need to give, like if you need to activate a creature to use its ability or something like that, being able again to tutor it off of a card like Urza's Saga. Urza's Saga been a pretty powerful card in the modern format for quite a while now. And further back you go, obviously, as well. Not a stranger to playing with equipment. The equipment of choice prior to this, of course, was Shadow Spear. But
Shadow Spear has gotten a lot of competition for the set, actually.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some interesting options you could look at. And again, like a utility card like Urza's Saga is a great tool for that kind of idea. And it makes cards like this a little more interesting, because I will say, from a like standard viewpoint, this card is not going to make waves here at all. This is, for your limited settings, sure, not a bad little card to throw onto a creature, get a kind of, a nice little attack in there for yourself. But from a standard constructed point, you're just not really getting what you want out of this card. But I think the further you go back, up to modern, really, it's got some merits to it. So it'll be interesting to see if this gets adapted to or kind of picked up. I think it's really only going to go into Saga decks.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really see it having a home anywhere else. The other big equipment style deck being Hammer.
There's also
There is
Saga deck.
Yeah, there is also Saga deck, but again, I don't really think they want to find this one. They got better things to find, namely hammers. There is that white blue equipment that is also in this set that could be interesting for hammer. Not on our list today, but it is one that I have my eye on. So
It's just, do you want to play 3 mana for removal in modern? Is the question.
well, I mean, it can be removal, but that's not a matter there. Any final thoughts here on Lava Spur Boots before we go on to our next card?
I would say it would be a very good pickup day one. This isn't going to be that expensive. Usually,
just not uncommon.
Yeah, usually uncommons like this kind of sit around $1 day, like for the first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then you turn your back, and then week 4, it's like $5. I would definitely try to pick this up. It's also just a good pair of boots you can put in Commander.
Sure.
So always something you want to look out for cards like these.
Sure. Yeah, Commander, another place this could definitely show up for sure. But let's go on to another card here. Let's take a look. This one spoiled a little more recently. A lot of these Vault cards had come out towards the end of the spoilers. They spoiled the main set first. Again, this is the first card we're looking at from the Aftermath, the Epilogue, as you said, type set. Similar to Martian Machine's Aftermath, which was the first example of an epilogue set. But here we have Harvester of Misery. So we're looking at a 5-mana 5/4 creature. So, on the face of it, not insane stats or anything to look at, but it is a menace creature. When it enters the battlefield, you get to give other creatures -2/-2 until the end of turn. And then for 1 and a black and discard it, you're able to give a target creature -2/-2 until end of turn. No restriction to its timing on that discard ability or anything like that. So kind of like a mini Massacre Worm type effect, if you want to kind of put it back to a creature that did this.
Very good thing. From the last set, we had Trumpeting Carnosaur. This kind of fits the same bill.
Yeah, creatures that you can play to have an effect. This one very different from Carnosaur's ETB, of course, or kind of a utility type spell in your hand to deal with maybe a smaller creature or something pesky on the board you want to get rid of, maybe a combat trick or something like that also to consider and kind of look out for. I mean, this card looks interesting. I know there's been some talk about it again online. What are your thoughts here on Harvester of Misery?
So I think this could be a very interesting idea for Living End.
Sure.
Living Ends, one of the couple problems with it is when you do Living End, sometimes they get a board too, and you're not that big of a fan. So just having a thing that just kills 2/2s, which your deck does not run any, is not a bad idea. Getting a nice clear board, just swing into, because you now are sadly playing at sorcery speed.
Yeah, I would say the bigger problem for Living End is they took away Violent Outburst, which I know there are some people that have tried to adapt and play more of like a white shell to include cards like Teferi Time Raveler and Ardent Plea. Not the same strength that it once had as Violent Outburst, but yeah, like you said, this doesn't hurt your board. Nothing in Living End, I guess, short of Grief.
Is Shardless Agent, is that a 2/2, I think?
Shardless Agent will also get white, but that's not really the thing you care about coming back either, for what it's worth.
I think Living End has this card come in before Shardless, and then Shardless comes in after the.
If you're living ending it, the Shardless will come into play after, if that's how you're bringing it into play. The only thing that will die in your deck, consistently to this is Grief. But Grief will still get the ETB off of itself, which is really the part you care about with Grief anyways.
And it's a 5/4 menace.
Yep.
So just, sometimes when you do get to the late game, just clearing their board with like the little stuff they have sitting around and just trying to swing with this card. Could give you a very nice win opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely an interesting card to think about for an archetype that maybe definitely took a hit recently with some more recent changes, but yeah, I think it also can see some play even in things like Standard. Maybe not as much with things like Pioneer. The X2s you really want to kill in Pioneer aren't really worth using something like this or having this as an answer or two in your deck, and it's not really, I mean, short of like the Convoke type decks, it's not really the board you're looking for, but maybe slowing down some early tempo with this in standard could be good. Whether it be like Fairy Masterminds or different things like that, even like Spyglass Sirens.
Infect, this doesn't really
Yep,
activate the
that is true. Yeah,
priest that everyone's very terrified of.
Yeah, Raw Priest is an interesting card, but yeah, this not being a spell that actually interacts is interesting as well. So yeah, I mean, I think this has some applications across multiple formats here potentially. So interesting to look at for sure. Let's move on to another card here. Let's see what we have next. We've got up Simulacrum Synthesizer. This is going to be an artifact for 2 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, you're going to scry 2, and whenever another artifact with mana value 3 or greater enters the battlefield, you get to create under your control. Importantly, you get to create a 0/0 construct with power equal to, or gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So,
just a nice Saga token.
Yeah, the as they've been referred to as Karn trucks, since I think Karn was the first one that really made those in recent memory. Karn Scion of Urza, was kind of the first one. So Karn trucks were their kind of their nickname there. But yeah, more recently and more commonly created off of Urza Saga, like you said. So this can just kind of be a repeatable way to get them. Now, it does have a cost obviously to it, which is the 3 mana. Permanent having to come into play, the artifact having to come into play. So where are you thinking that this potentially could see some play here?
I think this card would be a very interesting option for Affinity in Modern.
Sure, yeah.
Affinity is
like actual Affinity as well, not not what we've seen before, where it's just like kind of artifact based. Like this is actual Affinity we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm. So, important thing to note, this isn't on cast, so if you do make tokens of creatures you have in play, this can also activate off of that. But this is just, you're playing your companions, thought monitors, and you're just putting down a lot of constructs. This is just a very good option for decks, for the Affinity deck that just wants to get a lot of things on board.
Just get to the board.
And then just try to swing it. It does scry 2, which can help you start to combo off with this in a sense.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you think of, I guess the last time we kind of saw an Affinity type deck was even with like Up the Beanstalk in Modern, where again you're playing it with things like you said, Sojourner's Companion. You're looking at things like Mirror Enforcer, Thought Monitor,
Frogmite.
Frogmite even triggers this one. Yeah, didn't even think about that. Yeah, Frogmite triggers this too, which is that's not a hard one at all to get down either. I mean, granted, you probably want. I don't think it's going to be a 4 of in that Affinity type deck at all. But I think it definitely has some interesting applications in a deck like that wants to take advantage of bigger spells, particularly in this case, bigger artifacts. So yeah, could maybe revitalize an archetype that has maybe kind of fallen out of favor. Like I said, the last time we really saw it was with Up the Beanstalk, and when that got banned, the really kind of raw card draw engine you had with it, outside of course Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor, which are also very, very good to work together. But yeah, it should be interesting. And again, like you said, it's one of those things where, again, it's another Saga deck, so it's also going to be making its own tokens in other ways as well. It doesn't need to have this in play to be doing that and creating those constructs. But definitely an interesting one. Not one that I would say was on my radar personally, just because I don't play a lot of those decks usually. But yeah, it should be interesting to see if it makes any sort of change. One thing I'll also call out here, you'll notice that these vault cards, they're all listed at mythic rarity as well. Not really sure why they chose to do that. But
there's probably like some article or video about it.
I know arena players weren't happy about it when I saw online, since this now requires mythic wild cards, which, I mean, I haven't played a lot of arena, I will say, but I remember when I did play, it was easier to get those than rare ones most of the time. So we'll see if that has any sort of applications in arena. But Let's take a look here at our next card. We're going to look here now at Requisition Raid. This is our first example of one of the Surge cards that we talked about earlier. Or sorry, not sorry, Spree, my apologies, not Surge, sorry, Spree. Wrong mechanic. So the interesting thing also to note with these Spree cards, as we have one on screen, there is a small little change to the border of the card. In the very top right corner of it, there is that little plus icon. This is how you can quickly identify, whether it be in your hand or, in a pack you're looking through, just a pile of cards, whatever, which one of these cards are the Spree cards. Most of them, not all of them, but a lot of them have this lower, like you said earlier, lower initial casting cost. This one here just being a single white as its base cost. However, you do need to choose one. At least. So you can never just, cast this for white to increase your storm count, for example, and do nothing with it. This does need to be, you got to choose one at least. So this one kind of again, handy modal spell here where you have the option to either pay additional 1 3 times. The first option, you can destroy an artifact. The second option, you can destroy an enchantment. Not an uncommon thing we've seen on white cards in the past. And then finally, you can also choose to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that target player controls. Likely to be targeting yourself, I would imagine. But hey, you know what? If you're generous, you want to throw it out there.
Sometimes you just need to commit a crime,
Maybe. But again, the flexibility here of being able, if your opponent has, a pesky enchantment and artifact, to just, pay 3, get rid of both of them. Some nice flexibility there. What are you thinking here for Requisition Raid?
This card seems like a very solid sideboard card for a lot of decks.
Sure.
Important thing to note is these cards go down the list.
Yeah.
So you will destroy everything, anything that would be, under, enchantments, your temporary lockdowns,
yeah.
your leyline bindings. They'll come back and they'll get hit by that 1/1 counter stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important enough for all modal spells, not just these new Spree ones. Anything modal related will always resolve in the order printed on the card. So yeah, like Max said, in standard in particular right now, temporary lockdown a pretty important card if you're playing small creature strategies, as it's just going to wipe your board out. This one gets them back and maybe even grows them for you if you have that extra mana laying around.
It's a solid sideboard card. Might even have potential to be a main board card. It's worst case scenario, you pump your board a little bit, and then you just go to town.
Yeah, you were saying, a good sideboard card. It makes me think like some of the Esper lists are already playing things like Destroy Evils in the main, which, I'm not gonna say this is gonna replace Destroy Evil, since Destroy Evil, again, another modal spell, doesn't have the option to do more than one thing. But being able to also be a removal spell for creatures, also very, very good. But, again, maybe a slower control style deck could look at this as a way to, again, remove some pesky artifacts or enchantments for itself. And I don't think it's necessarily going to always be in the sideboard, but you could see in other places as well, for sure.
The problem with Destroy Evil is it was either one or the other.
Yeah.
So
this can be both, yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes you would only see no enchantments in the board that only would be playing enchantments, so 4 toughness creatures.
Yep.
Or vice versa, where you never really saw that 4 toughness creature that you wanted to kill.
Yep.
And Destroy Evil kind of sat in your hand, and you were really struggling to enjoy it there. But this card, worst case scenario, as I said, you pump your board, you swing it.
Yeah, the flexibility of the card is what kind of adds a little bit of extra strength to it for sure. And again, you get that naturally with modal spells, but this one, again, having that kind of pick your poison-esque ability, which also a modal spell, but yeah, that idea that you have that flexibility, which, yeah, like you said, Destroy Evil doesn't have that flexibility. You're trading their instant for sorcery speed payoff, but yeah, we'll see. Interesting. Let's see what we have next here. So it wants to cooperate. There we go. Up next, we have another Spree card here. Also a white card. This one we have Final Showdown. So this one here, again, single white to start things off. This one, a lot of flexibility. And I think out of the Spree cards, I think this one and the black one we'll also see a little bit later, I think are two of the ones that I think are most hyped up. The green one also has some thought around it. But this one here, for an additional 1, you can have all creatures lose all abilities until the end of turn. So a dress down-esque effect. For another colorless mana, you can also then give a creature you control indestructible until end of turn. And then for the bigger cost here, so this is the bigger one for sure than compared to the last card, 3 an additional 2 white. You can destroy all creatures. So I don't think you're going to see this being cast for all the modes very frequently. I think, honestly, I think where you're going to see this card being played more, or how you're going to see it playing more, I guess, is with the first 2 modes. Either to be a protection spell for a 1 and a white at instant speed, or to be that, again, dress down-esque effect at still instant speed like dress down is. The 6 mana Wrath, that's a hard sell for me. There are better Wrath than that in standard right now that are played consistently. I don't think you're going to see it as much. Maybe as kind of a flex slot, but what are your thoughts here on Final Showdown?
It's, as you said, a very interesting card. It is at a instant speed.
Yep.
Board wipe, which can be very important, especially for those decks that want to, play an Imidane's Recruiter, swing out, and you just board wipe them, and they're not too happy about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a dress down for 2 mana in white, which can be very needed, especially in standard sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, even just to the card you just mentioned, in fact, like, again, Imidane's Recruiter, super strong card. Not typically something you're fearing as much around the time you'll be looking at this as a board wipe. Again, being 6 mana for a board wipe. If you're in a board state like that, there's probably other considerations in that game at that point. But cast Imidane's Recruiter in response dress down, right? Your recruiter doesn't do anything
So
anymore.
important note is this doesn't stick on the board like dress down. So this will be in response
good point.
Going to combat step.
Good point.
You
lose
dress
all the
down
haste,
there.
though, yeah.
They lose their haste. They lose their buff.
Yeah.
Which would be a very good efficient way to deal with that little bit of a problem there.
So good call out there as well. The difference there between this and dress down, of course, dress down being an enchantment that gets to stick around in the play for the entirety of the turn, goes away at the end step. This one, it's kind of time stamped in a sense, but like you said, to your point, again, still interested in Imidane's Recruiter in quite a nice way, and Convoke right now in standard, still a pretty popular deck. We just finished up the RCQ season 4 standard. RC coming up here in a little bit. So I expect that Convoke will still be a very popular choice for that tournament as well. I can't see why it wouldn't be. But yeah, this interacting in some ways could be very interesting as well for sure. Let's take a look here at our next one. Up next, we have a removal spell, Scorching Shot, and this kind of has, the text itself, sorcery speed, deal 5 damage to a creature. It could really just say deal 5 to target Shieldred. I think that's what a lot of people are excited about here for this card, just because for a nice efficient removal of just 2 mana, for red in particular. Red struggles to deal with a 4/5 at times. You have things like Witchstalker's Frenzy and stuff like that, but for maybe a kind of more mid-rangey, grindy type deck, Witchstalker's Frenzy is not really the removal spell you're looking for to deal with a Shieldred. So, Scorching Shot, what do you got here, Max?
A lot of the stuff you were saying was correct. The problem with Witchstalker is you do need to attack, and sometimes you just cannot get that to line up. Maybe you just don't get that creature on turn 2 or turn 1, and you're just sitting there with the Shieldred staring you down, and you just do not have the mana to keep up with it. So this is just a very easy answer. For essentially just 1 mana more, you do get to kill the Shieldred.
Yeah.
And it can probably be a sideboard card. Nothing too fancy about it, but it's just a solid answer to some of the very serious problems you will have in your standard format.
Yeah, this is not going to be a main deck answer. I don't believe in any way. I mean, maybe some weird kind of fringe decks could play it. Maybe. I think, like you said, probably more sideboard driven than anything else. Which again, very reasonable when you're looking at a 5 toughness creature that can be quite a pain to remove, especially like I said before for red. You don't want to have to, you know, trade 2 spells off for it. Frenzy, again, efficient, but you really need to have either yourself or the opponent having a lot of attackers in this case, because Frenzy can also be reduced from your opponent attacking, but generally speaking, if again you're facing a Shieldred, they probably don't have a lot of attackers to go with it, so just a nice efficient removal spell here that I think will probably see some play in some different formats. I think most similar, probably best comparison to draw would be like to Roast, which, you know, going to Pioneer and I'm not going to say that modern, but like in Pioneer, Roast is kind of that answer to Shieldred, but it doesn't get to hit flyers. So any sort of larger flying creature, well, Roast just kind of says, yep, I can't touch that. This doesn't have that same restriction. They're both sorceries, but you're not losing that downside either or anything. So yeah, you're just, yeah, no problem. So all right, let's take a look at a different kind of removal card now. This one was kind of for big creatures. This one we have now. We're looking at some smaller stuff instead. This is Pest Control, which I know that you are not a fan of. White and a black sorcery. Destroy all non-land permanents with converted mana cost 1 or less, or mana value 1 or less. And then, you know, just because why not, let's tack on cycling for 2. Max, as the Convoke player in the room here, what are we thinking?
The Convoke player and the Scales player, because this also hits hard in Scales really hard. I feel this is kind of a hammer to deal with problems that Magic doesn't really want right now. This can hose down your Boros Convoke deck.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, some decks hit a stray, which is not very fun to see sometimes.
Yeah.
And then you just have cycling just for sometimes when you don't need it, you can pitch it away for the same mana cost you'd use to cast it.
Yeah, that's the cycling text is, I think, what really puts this card kind of over the edge a little bit here. Like you said, the matches where you don't need this. Okay, no problem. I'll just trade it for a card instead. No issues there, right? So I think this definitely is going to see some play in the Esper decks of the format in Standard. I think this could very easily slot into like a minor splash in even blue-white shells to deal with pesky things. Right? Again, like you said, Convoke, and like we talked about Convoke, it's the deck to answer if you're trying to go fast. And normally you're like, okay, can I answer it on turn 3? But, you know, Convoke can put out a pretty formidable board even by turn 3 sometimes. And that even a board wipe can't always solve that problem. This, turn earlier.
Yeah.
Gets all the same things. I like Lockdown is the other big card right now to deal with small pesky things. Even going into like Pioneer, you see decks playing temporary Lockdown a lot. Now, granted, that could be for different reasons, like needing to be a certain CMC or being an enchantment. But I think this, again, if you're worried about quick to the board, aggressive decks, or, you know, even pesky artifacts that just have, you know, other abilities, you know, things like Pithing Needle, or, you know, things like even like Relics or Nihil Spell Bombs, those kind of things there, this gets them all. This just cleans them up no matter what, or makes them, you know, get rid of them and something like that. So yeah, as the Scales player / Convoke player, I apologize for what I'll likely end up casting against you at some point in the future.
So we didn't say we'd talk about it much, but this, I think people were talking about this in Legacy as well.
Yeah.
Because he has a lot of 0 to 1 mana rocks. And
Delver costs 1, so Delver dies to this for sure.
That deck is just gone.
I don't know if I'd say gone. Delver still plays a very efficient, interaction to deal with that kind of stuff. But, you know, Dragon Rage Channeler costs 1, very important card in a lot of different formats. Again, Delver, if you're going to Legacy, just, again, token synergies. There's the different, you know, 0 mana rocks and stuff like that you get back to as well. And yeah, this just cleans them all up instead for a very nice, efficient cost of just black-white. So
Whip for the Convoke deck, Convoke tends to get that big damage on turn 3, so just hitting them right before that.
Yeah.
Getting rid of those, you know, goblins.
Yeah. That upturn of turn 2. Oh, it's gone now.
Hate to see it.
Yeah.
You know,
well, maybe you do, but you know, I have different opinions on that, I think. So, all right, let's take a look here at our next card. We're looking here now at Satoru. Satoru the Infiltrator. So Blue and a black. He is a 2/3. This is the first. This is the first, again, classified as an outlaw that we're seeing here from these creatures that we're going to talk about. But we have a 2/3 with menace. Whenever it or another creature, or sorry, non-token creature, very important, enters the battlefield under your control, if there was no mana spent on it, you get to draw a card on it or on them. So any single thing entering the battlefield will trigger this. Thoughts on Satoru here?
This card is, in my opinion, very good. I can see this in a lot of formats.
Okay.
This is just facing up like the types, like human, ninja, rogue, all very good tribes in,
Sure.
say, modern. This triggers off your Aether Vial, off of your cloak, off of, you like reanimate sometimes, evoke too. If you wanted Beans back, this is probably your best chance at getting that high once again.
Sure, sure. That 2 mana kind of is on the board. Easier to interact with the means, of course. I don't imagine. I mean, this plays with Aether Vial as well and stuff like that. If you're going back further, whether or not this really gets a home in any particular deck would be interesting to see. I think one point you mentioned again the fact that it interacts with Evoke so well. When the Evoke cards we're talking about right now are in this color at least Grief and Subtlety and stuff like that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Reanimator strategies also love this card as well. You're not spending mana to cast that creature; you're bringing it back for 0 in this case. So I think that this could be interesting. Again, not one when it first got spoiled. I think I kind of overlooked it a little bit, but I definitely think that there could be some applications in different formats for this kind of card.
Another fun deck this would be put in is Affinity. Affinity, you are usually
The
casting
0 drops, sure.
This is off of your 0 drop.
But yeah, the ones you pay for 0. Yeah.
So if you want, this is for those crazy people out there. Satoru into the one we talked before, and you just
start going.
You hope that you don't get board wiped.
See what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, that deck already doesn't want to get board wiped in the first place, so having one more that doesn't want to get board wiped doesn't really change much in that deck there. So interesting. Not a bad stat line as well. 2/3 for 2. Pretty good. So we'll see if that has any impact as we go forward.
Could be a card that pops up here and there. I hope so, but on to the next card.
Yeah. Next up, we're gonna have another one of our spree cards. This is the one I kind of referenced earlier that people were talking about a little bit here. We've got Smuggler's Surprise. Another instant speed spree spell. So again, that instant speed, being able to play on your opponents and stuff, very, very, very important potentially. This one we're looking at for 2 mana. You get to mill 4 cards, and you may return or may put up to 2 creatures and or land cards from among them into your hand. You can leave them all there if you don't want them in your hand, which is great. For 4 and a green, so kind of the big additional cost to this one, you can put up to 2 creature cards from hand on the battlefield. I think this is where people are maybe getting excited for it, kind of that tooth and nail-esque type ability. And then finally, for again just a single one in this case, creatures you control with power 4 or greater gain hexproof until end of turn, as well as indestructible. I've seen this card talked about in a couple different decks. What are your thoughts initially here on Smuggler's Surprise?
Just like Satoru, I feel this card is a very strong card. It's an instant speed card, which is very important. So decks like Domain and Standard, I wouldn't mind playing this. Instead of trying to get those 4 colors for your Atraxa, you get to play Atraxa at instant speed on your opponent's turn for 2 green.
For 1 less, yeah.
And you get a bonus card, which maybe Galta, whatever those sick freaks that play Domain want to shove in there.
Sure.
Another one would be Amulet Titan. Getting to 6 mana is not that hard for that deck.
Nope.
And just getting this out before your turn, so in case they have that counter magic up, you can put this out, they get it countered, and then you just play the Titan that's actually still in your hand.
Yeah, they have to respect it the same way as Titan. So somewhere I saw this outside of modern or standard Pioneer, people talked about this with Greasefang. Greasefang has fallen off a little bit recently in that Pioneer metagame. This potentially could be a way that it starts to see maybe a little bit of resurgence. It's not. I will say the mill ability of it isn't as efficient as some other tools that it has. This, I think, for Grease Fang, again, the mill flexibility is nice. That's never a bad thing if you want to get more fuel in your graveyard for Grease Fang. But the third mode on it, giving your Grease Fang that Hexproof Indestructible, a pretty important piece of protection there. So I think it could see maybe a 1 or 2 of slot in a main deck, probably more so in sideboard potentially for that kind of deck there. But yeah, the applications again as you go back further, 6 mana is not a small amount of mana. But like you said, decks like Titan, for example, don't have any problem making that 6 mana in the first place. It's kind of exactly what it wants to do anyways. And if they don't have that counterspell, like if they're holding up a Subtlety, for example, well, Subtlety is not stopping this. It's just going to say, yep, I guess, oh, you get 2 Titans. All right, well, this is bad for me all of a sudden.
Or Titan and a Dryad, which can be
Titan and a Dryad,
very disgusting thing to deal with.
Yeah.
And they can also just come with Hexproof and Indestructible, which is a very scary thing to deal with.
Yeah. Again, being modal, we're gonna resolve an order. So if you are paying that full cost, your Titans are also safe for the turn in this case, which is again pretty strong if you're doing it that way. So should be interesting to see. I think this is another one of the ones again, the spree that just that flexibility offers a lot to a card that. We've seen effects of this before. The put creatures into play from your hand type ability and stuff like that. Just the flexibility of it doesn't have to be that. I can have it be something smaller if I wanted to, or when I've got that mana, here it is, right? So, yeah, again, another one people are excited for. So we'll see how that one plays out. But let's go on here. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, this one here. Lots and lots of talk about. People are excited for Slick Shot Show Off. 1 in a red. We have a Bird Wizard, another outlaw in this case. Flying hate. Sorry,
Wizard is not an outlaw. This is.
Oh, sorry, Warlock. My apologies. Yes, my mistake. Sorry.
Very different things.
Very. He looks so outlawish though. Look at him, right?
They really have cooked that, but that is a discussion for something else.
That's a whole other point. But again, Flying Haste 1/2. So up front, not the craziest stats, but that next line of text, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this is going to get +2/+0 until end of turn, and its plot cost the exact same as its regular mana cost. People have been talking about this in the store here. I don't see a lot of turns or a lot of game sequences where you're not plotting this. I don't really see a lot of spots where you're just like, yeah, you know what? I want this 1/2 for 2 on turn 2, get you for 1, and maybe have a bobble in there or something like that. Maybe if you're like the super all-in, meteoric growth bobble type deck, but just the ability to be like, yeah, I'll plot this. Next turn it's coming down. I've got 3 mana available to go with it, plus any sort of free spells that I might have available for myself. Let's see how we can get this creature to come. And again, the haste it's not like you get a reprieve here. It's just coming at you. Thoughts on Slick Shot Show Off here, Max?
This card is a doozy. This is something that this takes prowess and then just turns it into a glass cannon setup, which can be very scary to deal with. As you said, a turn 3 play with this can sometimes just shut the game out. Just a mutagenic growth with that one, sorcery that survived, and a couple other spells, and you're swinging lethal out of nowhere. And you had the counterspell up for when they tried to kill your Slick Shot.
Yeah, the protection aspect to it as well. Not something to neglect or ignore for sure. So yeah, I think this one is one of the cards that I think has gotten probably the most hype so far in spoiler season, just because of the potential applications. Prowess previously has been a deck in Modern and in Pioneer and stuff like that. This, again, kind of fallen off the map, Prowess has, but maybe this is a way for it to have that resurgence, taking the spot of things like Sprite Dragon, which that was kind of this is the one that gets that staying power. It was your 2-drop with Flying and Haste. This, I think, I would argue probably a pretty good upgrade. When you give Kiln Fiend wings, you're doing stuff.
And it does not have that dual cost. It's just a colorless and a red.
1 and a red.
So especially sometimes when you're not getting that perfect land setup, this card can smooth it out for that just nice Mono red kill.
Yeah, mono red prowess type deck as well, right? You don't have to have that blue anymore. If you don't want to go the counter spell, you just want to go all in on red and the free spells. You got it. You know,
as they say, make them have it.
Gut shots, growths, baubles, all those things. You know, really, really strong. So, all right, another card that has been talked about in a lot of different lights, in a lot of different ways online. I've seen we have Lost. Now, how do you pronounce this? We'll have this debate right now. I pronounce this Jeet.
I like Jite. It rolls off the tongue better. I don't, that's
all right.
Personal preference.
If you have a preference, throw it down in the comments. Let us know what you say for this card. But reminiscent, of course, of was always Jite or Jeet, however you want to pronounce that, from original Kamigawa block. We have here legendary artifact equipment. Whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a creature or a player, put a charge counter on Lost Jeet. Remove a counter, and you have 3 choices again. Lots of modal things. Untap target land. Target creature can't block this turn, or put a +1/+1 counter on the equipped creature. An equip cost of just 1, so kind of half a Jeet, but we've changed the abilities a little bit in this case. Like I said, I've just on different social media platforms the last few days after this card was spoiled, a lot of talk about this. Some believing that this is an amazing addition to a lot of decks. 1 mana again being a pretty important number for some cards, again like Urza's Saga, for example. The 1 mana equip again also very important to look at. But what are your thoughts here?
I am a big fan of this card. Okay. I'm coming out swinging. I feel it's a amazing card that can just give you a lot of aggression when you need it. Just getting that 1 mana creature turn 1. Your Ragavans, your Stalkers, so on and so forth. Turn 2, putting a Jite on it, and then just making that treasure with it. Untapping a land. Next turn you have a 4 or even a 5 mana turn. Turn 3 can be very disgusting in a lot of formats.
Yeah, I think the mode that I think most interests me here on this version of Jeet is the first one, which is the untap a land ability. Because again, the nice thing about Jeet for if you're watching and haven't played with Umezawa GT before or Jeet before, you don't have to have the card equipped to use these abilities. They got counters on it. Do what you want. So the fact that you can just kind of run some creatures in, and again, it's not damage to a player, which is also a really important kind of distinguishing feature of the Jeets in the past. Only the one really. And this one is it's just combat damage. When you give this to things that have double strike, it kind of gets out of hand. But be able to just stockpile these counters and then, I'm going to go ahead and have a whole bunch of lands, do a bunch of stuff in 1 turn here. Pretty interesting approach that you could look at here. I'd say if you're looking at flavor of Jeets, the untapped land doesn't really, to me, seem like it fits on this card the greatest, but I think that's, to me at least, what makes it pretty interesting. I think that's what I think, again, most players who are saying it's good, I think they're looking at this as that's probably the part that is interesting to kind of brew around or work around and kind of see, well, how can I make this work? Again, Saga ability to find this, not a bad thing either. I'm someone who's played with Jeet, and the original Jeet was very strong for its time. I do believe that at this point in time, it may not be as strong as it was. And again, there's that debate right now online of people saying, is this new Jeet in the current setting better or worse than the original Jeet? But
I feel it's not a good parallel to make. This is This is a more streamlined idea of Jeets. But I mean, it's a card that if it sticks on a creature, can really just push a game in your favor.
Yeah, for sure. Time will tell on this card, of course. We'll have to see what ends up happening with it. But let's take a look here at our next card. We're gonna bring up here Geralf, however you want to say his name. We have the Fleshright. So 2 and a blue for a 2/3. Legendary creature, human warlock. This one is an outlaw.
You got it right.
Got that one nailed this time. Whenever you cast a spell during your turn other than the first spell you have cast this turn, you get to create a 2/2 blue and black zombie creature token. A zombie rogue token. My apologies.
Which is also an outlaw.
Also an outlaw. Yeah, very important. Whenever a zombie enters the battlefield under your control, you get to give it a +1/+1 counter for each other zombie that has come into play under your control this turn. So again, a 2 or 3 mana in this case, 2/3. What are we thinking here for
I think
Geralt,
this card
what do
can
you want to
be
say?
a very interesting card. Zombies has a lot of support already. It's not that big of a deck, but
Sure.
maybe 1 or 2 cards away from actually being able to put up a fight. This card plays very well with Gravecrawler.
Okay. Yep.
Getting your Priest of Grinding God down with the Gravecrawler, sacking those, bring them back.
Mhm.
They're like maybe even like a 3/3 or a 4/4 can be a very rough thing to deal with. Also, it just casting spells, making zombies, and then just sometimes those zombies, 5/5s or 6/6s, depending on the turn.
Yeah. Important to note, it doesn't. Other cards like this before have clarified that it needs to be a non-creature spell or like it's a sorcery. This is just any spell you cast this turn. So, like you said, if you get some sort of way to kind of loop things together, something like Gravecrawler can kind of just all of a sudden be making these giant zombie tokens kind of out of nowhere in this case. And mind you, the typical zombie colors you're looking at are blue-black. You're not seeing a lot of haste effects typically in blue-black, so there's not a big way to do that. But if you got like an instant speed way to do things, which blue is pretty good at that, there could be something here for sure. So yeah, zombies, like you said, has been a tribe that has not starved for support. It's always been kind of on the fringe. They've got a lot of different lords, a lot of different bonus effects they can apply to each other, but this one just kind of another one to also help them grow a lot faster in this case. So it should be interesting. Let's go to our next card here. What do we have next? Oops, my apologies. Next we have another one that's seen a little bit of discussion online. Forsaken Miner. So a single black for a 2/2, so a very aggro slanted card in this case. Cannot block whenever you commit a crime. My apologies. You are able to pay a black. If you do, bring this back to the battlefield from the graveyard. Doesn't say tapped. Just get to bring it back into play untapped. Again, not that black is looking at being very hasty or something like that. But there's no speed requirement to this, so not that it can block either, obviously, but being able to do it on your opponent's turn is also nice. It's already there to be untapped. If you have maybe something that wants you to tap creatures or something like that, like Convoke-esque spell. Forsaken Miner. What do you got, Max?
I am a big fan of this card. I feel it's a very good option for those decks that want to bring stuff back, want to put consistent threats on the board. This goes really well to Toro. Just having a thread that you can throw away for some spells, bring it back, draw cards off it. It's a very good card that can be put in a lot of decks that want to target a lot of stuff, control people out and get that 2/2 that just whittles away the opponent as you just counter, kill, and do what you need to do to make sure your opponent cannot play the game.
Yeah, I know. I remember when Pioneer kind of first started coming on the scene, there was like a very mono black aggressive deck. This could potentially kind of bring a resurgence of it again. Just an efficient 2/2 for a single black that has recursion. Doesn't stay dead. It's not by any means at all a challenge for a black deck to commit crimes. I think it's probably going to be one of the better colors to do that with, aside from like red or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see where this is played. I believe this will see some play. Again, whether it'll be like a format defining staple, no. But I do think it'll have some playability to it. I have seen already, a lot of combos also enabled with this. Just the fact that, again, it's a single black that it costs to bring it back into play. I've seen, things like Phyrexian Altar Again, this is going back to older formats now, of course, or commander type formats, but sacrifice this, make a black mana, it's in your graveyard. You need some sort of payoff that just lets you use, something, even like
Blood Artist.
a Blood Artist could work for this potentially, absolutely, because it drains them. Goblin Bombardment, again, it's not going to work well with Ultra necessarily, but you've got options. It's not hard to see this card enabling some sort of combo.
Some other cards that don't see that much play. Bone Splinters loves this card.
Yep.
This is just 2 mana, kill a creature, put a 2/2 into play, and it is a 2/2, but a 2/2 can still do work, can still make your opponents do very bad trades, and your opponent's gonna not be very happy when they see it for the 5th time come back.
It's gonna come back a lot, so we'll see how that one plays out. Let's go to our next card here. All right, this one, I don't have a lot to say. I'm going to be honest. This is really in here because Max insisted we had to include Fibblethip. This is still with Loss on the Range. 1 blue for a legendary homunculus creature with Ward 2. He's a 1/1. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. The top card of your library has Plot. The Plot cost is equal to its mana cost. You may plot non-land cards from the top card of your library. Max, I have nothing to say. You take it away on this one.
I
Speak from
think
the heart,
this
buddy.
card is extremely interesting. It is a 1/1, but Ward 2. If this was Ward 3, it would essentially have hexproof, as we've found online.
We have established that, yeah.
Plot is a very interesting mechanic. If you're just playing a deck that wants to play a lot of 1 mana spells or 0 mana spells, you play this out, get like 3 to 4 spells into that plot zone, and then the only person lost is your opponent trying to figure a way out of that game.
Yeah. I have nothing to say on this card. I think
it's a staple.
Well, okay. We define staple differently. This was a card Max just insisted we have to have in our yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you're not the only one. I'll be entirely honest. I will concede that this, that it's a strong enough ability. I don't think you're going to see it in 60 card formats. I am happy to be wrong about that if it ends up being the case, but I think I'm pretty safe on that bet. So we'll have to see. But are we good here? You're going to Fibblethip now?
A little bit more. This you don't have to play just from your top of your library. You can do this from hand.
Sure, yeah.
So if you want to do a weird little cascade deck, you got that Rhino sitting in hand. You plot it away. You play it next turn, and it's no longer sitting there waiting 4 turns to make 2 4/4s. So if you're playing that deck that popped up a while back, with Electro Dominance, what was the other one? You put counters on it. You try to play Cascade from hand, essentially.
Oh, As Foretold.
Yeah, As Foretold. This kind of works the same way if you want to do a little funky stuff like that.
Well, he doesn't do anything in your hand, though. It's all top card of your library.
No, you can...
He doesn't know this card does.
I simply dreamed too much.
I think you're thinking of our next card, potentially, that gets to play with Rhinos very well. So let's go to that one before we're stuck on this card anymore. Let's go over here. We're gonna take a look here at one of the Planeswalkers for the set. This is Jace Reawakened. So I believe this is what Max may have been referring to with the Rhinos bit there. Blue. We have a Jace Planeswalker, starts with 3 loyalty. Starting off, he has the Sarah Avenger ability. You are not allowed to cast this card on your first, second, or third turns of the game. Important note, it's your turns. +1, draw a card, discard a card, so a typical Jace ability. Second +1 ability, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. You may exile a non-land card from your hand with converted mana cost 3 or less. If you do, it becomes plotted. That one pretty interesting. And then final ability here, -6. Until end of turn, whenever you cast a spell, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for that copy. Doesn't say anything about instant sorcery. It's any spell you cast. Pretty good there. So Max, you were saying about Rhinos. What about Rhinos here?
So, I mean, Rhinos is considered a 0 CMC spell, so this can pot it away.
Yep.
I do think this card is a little bit of a pipe dream. A lot of people are saying you could leyline into it, but they need to get leyline to play your Jace. They need to have a card that is worth casting with your Jace.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking about Tybalt, the double-sided card.
Yeah, Valky, yep.
The problem with that, though, is you're essentially having 3 cards that only really work together for a Planeswalker that does not, just say, I win the game. And if you're putting that much in, you kind of just want to win the game with it.
Yeah, I think, again, the text here, the Sarah Avenger-esque text of you can't do it on your first, second, or third turns, it does hold it back a little bit for sure. As you mentioned, people brewing with the idea of line of anticipation, because like I said, it's only your first, second turn you can't cast this on. If you have a way to play this on your opponent's turns, go nuts. But again, only very, very few ways to do that with a Planeswalker type card. So yeah, I don't know. There was, again, some talk about this card. The second +1 ability is really the reason for the talk around this card. The -6 is good, but I think the bulk of the lifting this card's doing is that second ability. And again, when you have those cards that are meant to be either suspended or something like that technically have a CMC of 0. All of a sudden, this gets let you just play for free. It's another one of those cards, like you said, like As for Total Electro Dominance, that fits into that kind of that corner of cards that, okay, we get to break these 0 CMC spells. Believe me, I promise you, if there is a deck that is trying to do this with Ancestral Visions, I'm gonna try it. Don't get me wrong. I love me some draw 3s, but I believe it is a bit of a pipe dream, unfortunately.
Yeah, the problem with this is you do plot it, you don't play the same turn. This is like the mechanic foretell. So this is still going to be a turn 4 play for your Tybalt or your other cheated thing in, and it's just that's a little clunky for the formats that allow this to happen.
Yeah, again, I'll watch this card. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited if it gets to take off. I just don't know if it's going to get there or not, but we'll see. It's interesting. It's interesting for sure. All right, up next, we have another spree card we're looking at here. This is the black one that we're looking at now. Let me just get my notes here. So we're looking here at Insatiable Avarice, single black sorcery. This one, when it got spoiled, had some talk around it. +2, so +2 generic mana. Search your library for any card. Put it in your hand. Put it on top of your deck. My apologies. Shuffle, put it on top of your deck. And then for black, target player draws 3 cards, loses 3 life. Kind of a stapled together for 2 triple black. Demonic, or I guess vampiric tutor more similarly. Put it on top, and then look at that, draw 3, lose 3. I drew the card I wanted in this case. Another one of our spree cards here. Where are we on this one, Max?
I've heard a lot of talk about it. This is, of course, a very talked about card for coffers. It's just, this is fighting against your that one tutor that you have to put into exile, the
Profane tutor.
Profane. This is a lot more clunky. You're like, some people are saying, once you get that mana rolling, this card comes out.
Yeah.
You get your card, you get 2 extra, you're happy, but just, you're asking a lot. 5 mana is still 5 mana. You're not a Tron deck fully.
It's a lot.
And, sometimes you just want to play Profane Tutor.
Yep.
And have that 4 mana ready for your damnation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Again, like we have one particular player here that's really ingrained with the coffers deck. And I've seen online in different coffer discussions and stuff like that, there's a debate around Profane Tutor. Our player here loves the card, likes to have it in his deck. I'm not 100% sold personally on Profane Tutor. It is kind of slow at times. Again, the point of coffers can take control of the board, and then have this kind of resolve when you need it to resolve, sort of thing. I do agree that this insatiable avarice card, coffers is the natural home to think of for it, since it is so black focused. I could also see it again potentially popping up. Pioneer has some mono black that appears every now and then and stuff like that. So again, being able to have like a late game mana sink in a sense, where you get to go find the best cards you're looking for, draw it immediately, or even like you said, just set it up for the next turn. 2 in a black, put a card top of your deck from your deck, not terrible. Maybe even just triple black, target you draw 6 cards, you draw 3 cards, I have shouldered and play, you take 9, right? For 3 mana. It's pretty interesting as well. So I've definitely won games off the back of my shouldered in play and side and butting my opponent to 6 them.
That is an option, but it's you're asking
flexibility. Said it a lot today. Flexibility again with these modal spells and these, the wording of target player, very important for sure. So yeah.
Coffers, can make a lot of black mana, but this is 3 black pips on turn 3 to rip it off.
Yeah.
ASAP, and that just sometimes that demo field just gets in the way.
Yeah, you're playing, between 6 and 8 field effects, so you're not reliably hitting triple black on turn 3 every single game, of course. So, but I think it has some potential natural homes. We'll have to see though. All right, getting down to the end here. Let's take a look at our next card. We've got the red spree. So I think we've had everything but a blue spree, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the blue sprees were a little bit clunkier. They took the more approach of you get a lot of options, but they cost more. And it's just, you don't really want that.
They just weren't as efficient, sure.
Yeah.
So here we have Great Train Heist, another instant speed spree spell. This one, again, the red one. So single red, the basic cost of it. For an additional 2 in a red, you get to untap all creatures you control. If it is your combat phase, there is an additional combat phase after this. So the timing on that, very important for when it needs to be done. For 2 colorless, creatures you control will get +1/+0 and gain first strike until end of turn, so a nice little combat trick. And then finally, for an additional red, you can choose target opponent. Whenever a creature you control this turn deals combat damage to that player, create a tapped treasure token. So again, instant speed, has some combat tricks to it. What do we think here on Great Train Heist?
I think this card is very cool. I feel that with the cards that Force Invoke has kind of had thrown at them, they need to kind of play a more of a maybe mid-game range idea. A very important note is the extra combat is on your turn 4. So decks that play the Wandering Emperor usually come down, try to exile a tapped creature, and if you can get that extra combat off, you kind of just blow them out of water there.
Sure, yeah, it's possible. If you're on the play, you get to your 4th mana first. I mean,
no, because Wandering Emperor is 4 mana. So they'll have their 4 mana up. You go to your turn 4, you play the land, 4 mana, you swing out Emperor, and then you do this in response. They tap.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, true, because it also untaps them. Yes, good point. I forgot about that working there. We've seen effects like this with the extra combat. I don't think 4 is that bad at all for that extra combat step.
This might be one of the cheapest extra combat and one of the few at instant speed.
Yeah, the instant speed is also pretty different. Usually it's either like an enchantment or something like that you can activate afterwards, or it's just a sorcery spell you can play or something like that. Yeah, I think this card, again, flexibility, like we've been saying a whole bunch here, obviously. It's interesting, and yeah, again, like to your point, the blowing out the Emperor play is pretty interesting as well. 4 mana can be expensive for a deck like Invoke, but again, there could be maybe some like mid-range red aggressive deck you could look at with this. That'd be interesting to see as well, potentially.
I mean, it's also the 3 mana play of +1 first strike. This is a very good option. Sometimes you're staring on a Glissa that you just cannot get rid of.
Sure.
So that 2-power creature swinging into it now trades with it.
Yeah, you get that trade off at least.
Or just sometimes you just ramp yourself into a very disgusting turn after that. This card I feel has probably one of the better toolkits and probably the cheapest toolkit out of the bundle we've seen.
Yeah, it could be interesting. So, again, the spree cards, I think this is our last spree we're looking at here today. They're all pretty interesting, though. Again, just that flexibility, that power of choice. When you get choices, it's a good card usually. But let's see what else we got here. We got a couple more cards to look at. Next up, we have the Oltec Matter Weaver. 2 in a way. This one's again a creature. It's a 2/4, so not a bad stat line. Whenever you cast a creature spell, choose one. Create a 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature token. Probably not the ability you're choosing very often. Or create a token that is a copy of target artifact token you control. So if you have ways to make just other artifact tokens, hey, here's more of that artifact token. Max, thoughts on the old tech Matter Weaver?
This card doesn't seem that strong on face value, but in the right setup, it is a very strong engine. Especially if you get a very important, like, artifact token down, and just start making copies off, creatures. This can get out of hand really fast.
Yeah, constructs again come into play here. That's a token. So more constructs, kind of stack them up together. Again, the gnome, that's going to be the one you start off with maybe or something like that. But if you can get a better token going, there you go. That's the one you're looking at instead. So it does only trigger off creatures, so you do need to have a pretty creature heavy mana base, or deck rather, to make this work efficiently. It's not like other pyromancer type cards in the past where it was like off of instant sorceries or non-creatures. This one actually wants creatures in this case. So interesting to see. Again, the right kind of deck could definitely take advantage of this pretty effectively. Even in standard, you have plenty of things that make those Karnstruck-esque creatures that, just get bigger for what you have in play.
This is probably one of those cards that kind of sits in the wayside for a little bit, and then
could see them play a little later maybe,
and just comes out swinging.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Last tier of the non-commander cards, we have Breaches the Blastmaker. This one, I think, again, Max snuck into our card list here a little bit more, but
I like it a lot.
Yeah, of course you do. We've got 1 blue-red for a legendary goblin pirate. He has Menace. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you may sacrifice an artifact. If you do flip a coin, lots of words here. When you flip a coin, when you win the flip, copy that spell. Not a bad ability. You may choose targets for the copy. If you lose the flip, Breaches will deal damage equal to that spell's CMC to any target creature. So I will say, when I initially saw this card in one of our group chats, my first thought was, well, there's no downside here. You're not losing the coin flip in this case. And then when I read it again, it's got a pretty hefty cost to get this to turn online. Yes, there are a lot of cheap, efficient spells that you could utilize to kind of take advantage of this, absolutely. But the addition, the needed, cost of having to play a second spell and then also having to have an artifact to sacrifice. But Max, you're a lover of Breaches, so take it away on Breaches.
Big fan of pirates. I have a CDH pirate commander deck, which I'm a huge fan of. Yep. This is one of the 3 pirates we got from this set.
Yep.
So there is another dual one, the Malcolm, which is the kind of partner to Breaches, which has the same effect, but instead of the fling or whatever you want to call it, makes a clue, which can work in tandem with this. But this is just sometimes you play Breaches, you play a ley line binding with it. Worst case scenario, you're throwing 7 damage at their face.
I don't know what world we're living in where you have Breaches and binding in the same deck, Max, but you dare to dream, buddy. You dare to dream.
It's a possibility.
Sure.
Breaches, I feel, can be one of those cards that goes into one of those fun decks that just sweeps a RCQ for no reason and just makes people scratch their head and wonder what went wrong.
Yeah, why did I come to this tournament today? Why did I pay money to lose to this deck?
I mean,
I gotcha.
Sometimes you get a copy, or you just fling a lot of damage at their face. You're not that sad either way.
I agree. Again, I agree. The coin flip, there's no losing to it. It's good. It's a good strong ability there. You just gotta. It's a lot of work to get there, but. All right, we got one last card here to take a look at. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't actually read this card myself today, so we're gonna have a look at it quickly here. We have it on screen. Stella Lee Wild Card, 1 red and a blue. This is from the Commander set of the Outlaws Junction. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, exile the top card of your library until end of turn. End of next turn, you may play that card. Copy target tapper. Copy target instant sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Activate only if you've cast 3 or more spells this turn. Again, Justice, one of the employees here at the store, really big on this card. Recently, Store's gotten pretty big into competitive EDH, and this is a card that Justice was pretty excited for in terms of competitive EDH. Max, you again, like you just mentioned, you have a competitive EDH Pirates deck. Where does this kind of? It's not a pirate, but what are your thoughts on this being a blue-red card?
This card, it's likes to, rip from your top. This card can give you a lot of value. It wouldn't be that surprising to see you play 2 cards every turn. Trying to keep that stack in your favor, especially with those, game-winning spells just popping out of nowhere. And, copying, a target into a sorcery spell you control. That can, maybe give you a second win con in hand. Another counter spell for when they try to, fight it on the stack. It is a card that can, see a lot of versatility.
Yeah, the second counterspell part's interesting just because you do need to. You can only do it if you've cast 3 or more spells this turn. So if you get into like a big counter war or something like that, again, being in blue, it's going to happen potentially. You having that additional little. Well, this is also a counterspell now. All of a sudden, right? Let's just tap this and oops, look at that! I have another spell you didn't see me having.
It's when you're trying to go for that win con and you just need that one extra counterspell to get it going. This card can come in there and just save you.
Yeah, I don't see it being difficult to cast the 3 spells on your own turn. It gets trickier when you're doing it on your opponent's turn, however, instead. So again, from a competitive EDH standpoint, from just general EDH standpoint, commander standpoint, we'll have to see how this card does. Again, I've just recently gotten into that competitive EDH scene myself, with our store kind of, a lot of players wanting to kind of get going with it. So, we'll see. I don't know enough about the actual, front runners of the format to really say for sure, but it's definitely a strong effect when you read it. And that's what Commander's all about. It just wants strong spells, right? So, so that brings us to the end here of the cards that we were looking to review here with our first set review here with Mecha Games. I think overall, there's again a lot of strong cards in this set that are coming. I'm excited to see how it's going to impact the different formats. I believe there will be some impacts to different formats for sure from these cards. Maybe not as much as some previous sets have done, but final thoughts here on Outlaws Thunder Junction, Max.
I'm very excited. There's a lot of fun cards to play with, to test with. It's one of those sets that you can just sit around, throw cards on a table and test them out for hours, which I am always a fan of.
For sure. So again, final reminders here as we wrap things up. April 12th, the other A month. April 12th is the pre-release date for this set. So again, if you are local here to Mecha Games in St. Catharines, come on down on April 12th. We would love to have you. A lot of fun times at pre-releases if you haven't played one before. If you're kind of newer to the game or something like that, it's a great way to learn, great way to have some fun with the new cards. Everyone kind of that even footing with, what you get's what you get. Also, that's when the set will also release in store, so you're able to pick up your singles, able to pick up your boxes, all that fun stuff. So commander decks, whatever it is you're looking for to get from the set, April 12th is your date. You can get it either in store here or on mechagames.ca online as well as an option. But I think that's gonna wrap things up here for us. If you haven't liked or subscribed to the channel, please absolutely do so down below. We would appreciate that. We're a growing channel here. We're new to this, so any sort of feedback you have, always please provide that to us. We're happy to take that. But I think we're gonna sign off from here. So Max, it was great talking with you here.
With you, Ryan.
Lots of interesting cards to look at. So I'm excited. You're excited. We'll see how things go after April 12th. So have a good night. Thanks for watching, and
have a good one.
Yeah.